If you're anything like me, the PS2 era was your golden age of gaming. It came with classic after classic, and even with all that, one game somehow managed to find its way to the top of my and so many other people's core memories: Sly Cooper. In a time when realism and polygon counts were increasingly the benchmarks for quality, Sly reminded us that style could define an experience too. Instead of forcing you to crawl in the gritty world of shadows, Sly let you run on rooftops and glide on rails. It committed fully to the cartoon fantasy of being the gentleman thief in the night, and it was that commitment that made him so iconic. But before the thief, there was the team. This team. Founded in 1997 as the brainchild of a group of ex-Microsoft employees, Sucker Punch had its first entry into gaming with Rocket, Robot on Wheels for the N64. Rocket wore its inspirations on its sleeve, and it was where the studio first blended its technical chops with quirky imagination, going as far as to make the first realistic physics engine for a console game. With the technology of the time, it took meticulous coding and fine-tuning to even make that possible, but the result was movement that just felt intuitive. Every bounce and roll was one extra step in making the playground feel alive, and you can hear that obsession with game feel listening to any of the studio founders.
Kind of a philosophical point at Sucker Punch is that it's all about the product. That, like, the thing that's important is that the game experience is as good as it can be. That we're doing this for the people that are playing the games.
Rocket, while releasing to warm critical reception, had pretty lukewarm sales, getting eclipsed by Nintendo's Titans. Still, it gave Sucker Punch valuable connections and insights into their own design philosophy, the combination of technical mastery with personality. They just needed a slick raccoon with a mask and a cane to bring it all together. The idea was simple: a master thief from a long line of master thieves chasing revenge and his family's lost legacy in the form of pages from his ancestral handbook, the Thievius Raccoonus. The execution was anything but. In the early 2000s, there was a new underexplored art style in gaming pioneered by Sega's Jet Set Radio called cell shading. Cell shading is a rendering technique with less gradients and more flat coloring to give 3D shapes a cartoon pop. It's timeless. And in classic Sucker Punch fashion, the studio made their own lighting algorithm that they could use to make Sly and his world feel stylized and fun, which Brian Fleming called toon shading. So while other PS2 games were chasing high-fidelity realism, Sucker Punch was honing their distinct visual language. That technique was both a way to stand out in a crowded market and a way to make the world instantly readable as you jump and slide from point to point. It leads your eye. In other words, the aesthetics dictate the flow of the experience. Style is substance. You can find that same thinking baked into every nook and cranny of the franchise. Take, for example, the blue auras littered across the Sly world that cue you for quote-unquote thieving opportunities. And that style element is married to a clear function, as signs that surfaces can be platformed on. No blue aura, no platforming. And with that signal established, the game becomes less about pixel-perfect jumps and again more about smooth timing and rhythm. Sly snaps to pipes like a magnet. Now compare that with Naughty Dog's Jak and Daxter, where platforming precision is a key to the fun. The level and combat design work this way too. Rails curve to drive momentum, and gaps are carefully curated to nudge the player to string movements together, like a double jump into a cane swing into a slide. And enemies can be taken out with a single swipe of the cane so as not to slow down the action. Sly Cooper wants you to feel like you're choreographing a heist, and so the design elements all conspire to help you do it, not fight against you. Maybe the best example of Sucker Punch's approach to game feel, though, is Sly himself. In the words of designer Nate Fox,
Sly is Sly. It is not a misnomer.
Freeze, raccoon!
How can I freeze when my heart warms at the very sight of you?
Shut up, ringtail.
the game makes sure you don't forget that charm, and that process starts with his silhouette and the lines in it. Bold, with exaggerated curves to really drive home that this is a dynamic and agile character. When Sly crouches, his spine almost coils up to look like he's charging up potential energy like a spring. And when you add motion and sound to that, it gets amplified. Just look how he tiptoes around and how the sound effects punctuate it. In this way, all of the pieces of the game work in harmony to reinforce the fantasy of the Master Thief. After the release of Sly Cooper in 2002 and modest success, Sucker Punch was greenlit for a sequel that was released 2 years later. In it, all of the same design principles applied, but the studio was able to deepen them. The main shift was a move away from straightforward platforming levels and towards less linear hub worlds, which came with a sequence of preparation missions leading to a climactic heist. So instantly the playable characters expanded from 1 to 3, including the nerdy Bentley and the headstrong Murray. More opportunities for Sucker Punch to flex their design muscles. Each character was encoded with personality through the way they walked, to the way they attacked, to their respective mission structures. That trend only continued with the last of the trilogy, which introduced even more playable members of the Cooper gang. Sucker Punch would go on to release the critically acclaimed Infamous trilogy, followed by the even more critically acclaimed Ghost series. And through all that, they never lost sight of their core belief, that style and substance are actually one and the same. More than just a series of platformers, Sly Cooper was a masterclass in how presentation can guide mechanics and emotions. Even now, over 2 decades later, it's a shining example of how games are supposed to be. Fun. Thanks for watching.